Hi everyone, this is a long time coming, but there's just been a lot going on and some hard things and, such is life. So I just wanted to give you guys an update and let you know where we go from here and where you fit in, because your help is going to be pivotal in moving this effort forward. The amendment, it has a name now. It's the Protecting the Disabled Workforce Act. It is an amendment to the ADA. A couple of months ago, I received some frustrating news from Simpson's office that demonstrated that nobody bothered doing the research to find out what Title I of the ADA already says now and what it actually does. And then there's also the House's obsession with nailing Biden to the wall, whether you agree with that or not. It's taking up all of their time and all of their effort, and so they just aren't interested in civil rights right now. So we've got work to do to really get this off of the ground at this point. So Simpson's office spoke with the Judiciary Committee, who would have one subcommittee that may be in charge of reviewing this act. And so they already spoke to them to find out if they would have any interest in this movement or anything like that. And they pretty much said no, they've got better things to do. Great, right? And they said that they think that this amendment would make every single business in America potentially exposed to lawsuits. First of all, if they discriminate, let them get sued, right? It's just incredibly frustrating to even hear something so ridiculous. Second, not a single new organization would be on the hook for Title I of the ADA. Title I already has cutoffs in place for who's on the hook and who is not on the hook. Nowhere near every single business in America will be affected. The cutoff is so specific to me that it's mind-boggling. In order to be on the hook for Title I, the business has to have 15 paid employees every single workday for 20 weeks straight this year or last year. That cuts out a lot of people right there. So that's not going to change in the amendment. It will still be 15 paid workers, also known as employees, working every single workday, whether that's 3 days a week or 7 days a week, for 20 weeks straight. So in no way, shape, or form does every business in America become exposed to this amendment. And really, what does it matter if they did in the first place? This already affects nonprofits and other organizations that have these paid workers. And then there is the idea that avoiding lawsuits is more important than protecting disabled Americans from discrimination. Is that what the Judiciary Committee was concerned about before protecting Black Americans? Oh no, think about the lawsuits. It's pretty obvious how to avoid a lawsuit. Don't discriminate. By this logic, Black people and women maybe shouldn't be protected to this day. Think of the lawsuits. Let a few lawsuits show other organizations to rein in their discrimination. This is no different than when the ADA was first introduced 30 years ago, or any other civil rights act. Think of the lawsuits. It's so offensive. Will there be frivolous lawsuits from time to time? Sure, it's going to happen no matter what. Is avoiding the occasional frivolous lawsuit really worth permitting discrimination against an at-risk group of millions of people just trying to contribute to society? It's so gross to even think about. Think of the lawsuits. These are the most ridiculous, sad, and offensive excuses I could have imagined. And what does it say? That the Judiciary Committee is just not interested. There's a subcommittee whose job it is to protect federal civil rights. They work under the Judiciary Committee. This is their job, and they're not interested? Since it was clear that Simpson's office was not going to get around to writing the bill, we wrote it. And that's what has taken this so long. This update has taken so long. Protecting the Disabled Workforce Act. You can read it in the attached link. It's simply an amendment to Title I that substitutes worker for employee and workforce for employees. It's as simple as that. It's like 16 or 17 pages because they use those words a lot to say a lot of different random things. It becomes quite the boring read, actually, but feel free to take a look. The only place employee is retained is to keep the definition of who is on the hook, just the same as it already is. The same 15 paid workers every single workday for 20 weeks straight, this year or last year. That is the only place where employee is maintained. Employer is maintained through the entire act because, again, we're talking about having paid workers, which are the employees. So employer, employee, employer stays the same. The only addition was to add a 2-year statute of limitations. Currently, there is an administrative policy with the EEOC that grants 6 months for statute of limitations, unless the state has an extension up to a year, which Idaho does. So why a 2-year statute of limitations? Well, the Equal Pay Act, which is to protect women, okay, any opposite gender, right? But it was enacted to protect women from being paid less than a male counterpart for the same job. And in the Equal Pay Act, it is by statute that they have a 2-year statute of limitations. They're not subject to the administrative one from the EEOC, therefore. So we're adding to make it a statute that there will be a 2-year statute of limitations. And why does that matter? There are so many reasons. A disabled person can face so many things in their lives. They can face physical setbacks. They can face, after discrimination, they could face all sort of mental setbacks. There can be cases where the person has no idea that they were discriminated against. Maybe they haven't had that conversation with somebody, and it's one of their medical team members of some kind that they have a conversation with one day, and it's like, oh, what happened to you is completely illegal. What they did to you is illegal, and that person didn't even realize it. There are just so many reasons. I have a brain injury, for goodness sake. It makes zero sense. 2 years, even 2 years, is the bare minimum of what should be expected. And so that's the only addition to this act. Beyond this disappointing news, I also learned some cold hard facts of what is needed and what needs to happen besides the stars aligning. So please, pray, 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 because this is going to take an act of God. And that's the only thing that I can have hope in at this point. Simpson is not on the relevant subcommittee to get this job done, and that is not good. It's not impossible, but it's not good. The most hopeful and efficient way for a bill to become a law is for a sponsor to be on the relevant subcommittee. This way, that sponsor can continually advocate for the issue to be heard in that committee. Committee chairs are the ones that decide what gets heard and what gets ignored. Simpson's office would make it sound like this was a limiting barrier, but it's not. It's simply something that we have to work around. Best case scenario, we find a co-signer that is on the appropriate subcommittee. Worst case scenario, we, meaning you and I, need to advocate for this to move forward without a co-signer on the relevant subcommittee. There is the Bipartisan Disability Caucus. Fingers crossed that this is a productive way for us to advocate for this change. Also, we stay on Simpson's office to be networking and to be advocating for this to move forward. It takes advocation. And that's something that we have to hold Simpson's office accountable for. There are 2 potential subcommittees for this to end up with. I'm getting clarification on why Simpson's office believes it will go to the Constitution and Limited Government Judiciary Subcommittee, which is responsible for federal civil rights, as opposed to the Workforce Protections Subcommittee under Education and Workforce. I believe that the Workforce Protection Subcommittee is our best path forward. Either way, please pray. I'm not even kidding. This is going to take an act of God. We've identified a potential co-sponsor from each of those subcommittees. We have better access to the workforce protections guy. Both are disabilities advocates. The hardest part is the fact that we are not their constituents, so we can't directly advocate to them. However, it just so happens that Matt's hometown rep is the workforce protections guy. So there's at least a path to advocate from his constituents that way. So what's next, and where do you come in? I know you're so excited to find out what you've got to do to contribute. We need to demand that Simpson sponsor the bill. Please flood his inbox in the coming weeks. Sponsor the Protecting the Disabled Workforce Act. Find a co-sponsor now. It's ridiculous that the entire workforce hasn't been protected for decades at this point. It doesn't have to be a long note. Just give him the short version of why you think that it's important. Please emphasize the need for them to protect us now, not when they get around to it. Tell him that it will be good for Idaho to stand for civil rights. Make it clear that this is a demand. We insist on this. We don't just want it. We don't like the idea. We insist that he make this happen. He represents you, and this is how you want to be represented. Please avoid the use of the phrase volunteers. This is a workforce issue. These are workers contributing to society. The unpaid workforce is absolutely critical to our society. It's not about do-gooders who can go and find somewhere else to do good. They aren't any less of a worker because they aren't paid in dollars and dollar value. There's a subcommittee called Workforce Protection. Who makes up the workforce? Workers. Millions of them are paid and millions of them are unpaid. They are all working. They all deserve protection. So the most important part of the next step is in-person advocacy. I get nothing done via email. I have to present myself in person to get answers. If people care enough to present themselves in person, then it's obviously a big deal to them. My goal is to have 1 to 2 people per week go to Simpson's office to advocate within Taylor's Crossing. And I need you to step up. I've already identified the first person that's going to go in person next week, and I am so grateful and so excited. Now, before you shrink back and think, no way, or start thinking of all the things on your to-do list that haven't been done yet, first, this cannot happen without you. I need your help. I'm desperate to make this happen. I'm desperate to make what happened to me matter, to protect other people. This is only being accomplished because of your letters and the help that you've given me. The only thing that gives me the strength is knowing that I have the support. Every single view helps me stay alive. Every single person that reaches out to me helps me survive one more day. Your support is life-giving to me. Plenty of days I'm clarifying my final wishes with Matt, and I've been open about that. There has to be purpose to what happened to me. That's the only way that I can live with this, and your support is everything to me. Second, nothing about this has to be difficult. These are incredibly nice people. They're caring, and this is just a conversation. That's all I'm asking for, is a conversation. Tell them why it is important to you. Heck, if all you can say is that you know the harm that discrimination like this has caused somebody that you know, and that others need to be protected, then that's perfect. So don't everybody stand up all at once, right? I would love to identify 2 more people that are willing to go this week in person, normal office hours, Monday through Thursday. Fridays they're supposed to be there, but sometimes they're not. I want to start out strong before going to 2 people or 1 person per week. Please reach out if you're willing to stand up without being asked. Even if you don't stand up, I'm going to have to be a big girl and step outside of my comfort zone, and I'll be coming for you. You'll have to tell the broken girl no to her virtual face, and ignored messages are just thoughtless. If you're not available this coming week, that's fine. Sign up for a different week that you will be available for. You'll spare me the distress of having to hunt people down, and I would love you for it. There is a document on this link for conversation guidance. There are some other documents to give you more information and context. And don't feel like you have to circle back with me after your meeting or anything like that. You're welcome to, but you don't have to. Guys, I live or die by this. I wish it wasn't true. I'm embarrassed that that's true, but it's just the way that it is. How few views I know I'm going to get on this, it's going to impact me deeply. How few people stand up before being asked, that's going to be harmful to me. I've been open to you about how traumatic this has been to me. I know that I'm old news at this point. I'm in my 4th year. I'm old news to you, but this is new to me every single solitary day. I live this every single solitary day. After my accident, I was left with a single piece of myself. A single piece of myself that could motivate me to get through the days, to look to my future, to work harder. That was cruelly torn away from me. It was the only thing that I had left. It was left intact after my accident. I had already lost almost all of me in that accident, between a spinal cord injury and a brain injury. And I was left with one little piece of me. And that was cruelly taken away. I need your help. I appreciate your support so much. You can't even imagine how much it means to me. We've got to make this happen. So please, 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 step up, volunteer in advance so that, you're one less person that I have to go and beg. But if what I have to do is beg you, then I guess that's what I'm going to do. So let this just be the next step, and let's get this moving forward. But please, pray. I feel like that's all the hope that there is. Thanks.